Hello, and welcome to another installment of Atomic Transmissions Live. I'm John Schaefer, and today I'm going to be painting some Separatist Specialists. I like droids a lot, so I'm really looking forward to painting all these guys up. I'm going to go over a little bit on some assembly tips and some kind of general best practices when it comes to these miniatures. And I'm probably going to try to focus on painting a couple of them this time around and maybe two more next time. So I'm looking forward to getting started, so I think we can probably go ahead and get this rolling. Just as a quick check, I just want to make sure that sound and everything is okay on this before I proceed. All right, let's try to shift over to the next bit here. So I'm going to start off by first kind of showing you a little bit about the assembly and a couple little details here. So for starting off here with the probe droid, I've elected to take this miniature and attach him to a paper clip so I can more easily paint him. And this particular miniature has a clear flight stand, and it goes up in between the legs underneath it. So I've done that separately as well. One little bit about the assembly on this guy is that he has like this little top cap that goes on top of everything. There's a central little kind of like axis point like in the middle, and then the two sides kind of clamp together on either side, and then you drop this little guy on top. It was kind of made clear to me after I looked at the sprues for a little bit longer. And then for the flight stand, what I've done is I went ahead and I took some masking tape and I wrapped it around the clear flight stand here, and I primed it up. And I'll leave this masking tape on as I go ahead and paint the base, and then I'll just pull that off afterwards. So just a little simple step if you want to try to integrate the base into the scenery, kind of like I've done here. I think it's a good general practice for it. Let me turn on a little bit more light here so we can see this a little bit better. Cool. So today I'm going to focus mostly on painting probably the most highly anticipated miniature in this particular product, and that is the T-Series Tactical Droid. He opens up a ton of new options for you for your Separatist armies in the form of a cheap commander or as an individual unit upgrade. I've seen a lot of chatter online about different strategies utilizing this particular fellow, so I'm looking forward to getting one painted up for my own Separatist army. He's got a couple different weapon options, but I opted to give him his blaster and the heroic pointing hand, I suppose. It looks like he wants to offer you a handshake. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with him. And I've opted to go with a color scheme. It's really cold here right now in Minnesota, and I've been thinking a lot about the spring, and I'm inspired to paint a little bit of green. So I'm going to put some green on this guy, but I also want him to tie in with some of my existing miniatures, like this B2 battle droid right here. So it's some different kind of green shades, two different shades of green, and then kind of like a nice tan underneath. So this is kind of going to be the overall scheme that I'm going to be trying to match. I'm going to go for a little bit of a different basing scheme because last time I kind of went through the process on doing these, and I think that it's appropriate for some Separatist miniatures if we explore a little bit of a Geonosis kind of theme. So something a little more Marsy, I suppose. All right, so to get started with that, I'm going to go ahead and start to apply a base coat onto the base, and while that dries, then I'll apply a base coat onto the actual miniature itself. I've opted to go with a color called Red Leather from Scale Color. It's a nice kind of deep burgundy, and I'm just going to go ahead and thin this down a little bit and apply it over the entire base. It's got a nice kind of mahogany kind of color to it. Light in here. It's better. So if you did not notice, we posted on social today that we put up all of the juicy details for Agent Callus and Lando Calrissian today. If you're curious about flaw cards and command cards and anything else that's left in those expansions, all was revealed in those articles. I personally am very excited about Agent Callus for my own Imperial army, and I'm already starting to devise getting Lando into the mix whenever I start my my rebel forces. Right, I'm just going to keep moving around this. I'm not too worried if I get a little bit on the feet, because I'm just going to go through and base coat all that stuff later. But right now, I just want to get this nice and into all those recesses. The base is going to be a lot more orange when we're done, but for now, this is a nice color for all the cracks and nooks and crannies on it. Right. Continue to kind of move around here a little bit. I see a little spot here by his foot. Kind of cram some paint down in there as best I can. All right, and for the base of the actual armor, I want to go with the majority of it's going to be a nice tan. So I'm going with birch from Scale Color. It's a nice kind of tan color there. And this, I'm not really thinning down, as opposed to what we often do in these streams where we're using the zenithal prime over top of things to really define stuff. I want this to be kind of nice and solid across the entire miniature. So I'm just going to go ahead and thin it slightly with some water, and then just move about this fellow and apply it pretty much all of the legs and the upper torso and the head. This center section here is a darker color, so I'll go in and paint that with a thin down black. And while you're going about it, to get a nice kind of even, smooth finish, make sure that you kind of change the direction that you're pulling the brush. Push that paint around. And don't be afraid to go back in and add just a little bit of water to your brush. Make it a little bit more damp in order to get a nice smooth finish. And when it comes to base coats like this, when we're not really utilizing the transparency of the paint over top, you might want to apply a couple different coats, but because we're on a bit of a time crunch here, I'm trying to get as much done in an hour as we can. I'm just going to try to get a nice, good base coat the first time around. Right. So these are scheduled, these Separatist Specialists and the Republic Specialists are scheduled to release in everywhere but the US today, I believe, and should be coming to stores in the US soon. I think Simone can probably speak to the exact date. I believe it's early March at this point, but she will know for sure. Move that base coat out a little bit. And then over top of this kind of tan color, I'm going to apply some glazes and some thin down paint to start to get in some of the shadows there. And we're going to do that kind of selectively, so it won't be like a wash over top the entire miniature. It's going to be kind of applied selectively and then feathered out with the damp brush afterwards. Kind of get some nice transitions in the lights and the darks. This backpack is probably going to get picked out in another color, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and apply a base coat onto it. And kind of as I mentioned before, like something that I generally do when painting miniatures is I'm not like super careful in the early stages, because I just know that I'm going to go back and there's going to be this kind of like touch-up phase where I tidy up things, I kind of go back in and line in and shade in some things. So I don't get too caught up in staying inside the lines, I suppose, in these early stages. I want to get a nice even coat across everything. I want a good finish, and then I focus on that first, and then I can tidy up any sort of stray lines or instances where I go a little a bit outside the norm. Okay. So, yeah, I did notice that the stream title is still set up to be Dallas's. I did not find the setting for that, so I'll make sure to get that changed next time around. We are not painting taco trucks today, I promise you. Okay. Get in here and get that little face. One bit of advice that I have for putting together these miniatures in particular is first of all, you definitely want to use a plastic glue because the parts are very small, and you don't want to super glue your fingers to the miniature at all. You definitely want to find an applicator for that plastic glue that can get into the kind of nooks and crannies. And my personal favorite is a brush-on type of plastic glue. You can usually find that at most hobby stores, anywhere where they have model kits. There's a number of model kit manufacturers that make a plastic glue that has a kind of like brush-on type of applicator, kind of like this one here. And you can just take this off, and then you can just apply with that little brush. Sorry, it's a little bit out of focus, but over top of the seams of the miniature, and that really helped me out when I was dealing with the medical droid in particular, because that fellow has got some pretty small connection points. Oh, speaking of which, I did want to kind of point out, kind of switching gears a little bit here. So this is the medical droid I was mentioning. The connection points for these extra arms here, there's like a small little raised area on the back of the torso, and there's small indents on either of these arms, and they glue right in there. So there's some people that are asking me about the connection point for that, and that's where it connects. So we'll probably be painting this fellow next stream, but for now I just wanted to mention that just as a general overview for these miniatures. Did not really run into anything specific that needed to be addressed for the T-Series Tactical Droid or the PK Worker Droid. Those are pretty straightforward, but there's some little subtlety in the assembly on the Probe Droid and the Medical Droid as well. Okay. All right, so I think we got a good base coat. I know it's not terribly exciting to watch someone base coat a miniature, but it's an important first step here that we have going on. That looks all right for now. I see a little bit, maybe another coat here. And we'll probably go in and highlight and bring this back up a little bit more. So for my next step to kind of shade down this armor a little bit, I've taken Arabic Shadow from Scale Color. It's kind of like a nice tan. I'm going to bring it in here so you can see it. And I've thinned that down with my 50-50 mix of matte medium and flow improver that I mentioned in the Callus video last week. And it produces a nice kind of thin paint that would look, you know, as far as transparency goes, you know, you can see it's very thin. You know, you can really see those lines underneath this little piece of plastic here that I have these lines drawn on. And this I want to concentrate mostly in the cracks and the crevices and the recesses, etc. Anywhere where light would not really fall. So like on the interior of these legs, I'm going to go down in here. And then just kind of pull the paint down towards the bottom. So I think that if you take your brush and just apply a little bit of water, you can kind of pull it away from those raised areas after you've applied it while it's still wet. And you can kind of move and manipulate this stuff so it'll start to fall in the areas that you really want it to. And that's a general approach that I like quite a bit. So I can go ahead and apply a little bit of this here, and then just kind of feather out that edge a little bit. Get those kind of cool fades. Right. A little bit more of this mixture. And I'm going to switch over to a nicer brush here that's got a better point on it. I've got a size 2 brush. Can hold a lot of paint on it, but it still has a really good tip that'll help me out with some of this more precision applications. Chase down in there a little bit. And then just use that damp brush to kind of pull it away from those raised areas. And this is a technique that you can use across any miniatures with these kind of armor plates, with these kind of hard edges on them. You can just kind of apply these colors in the shadows a little bit. I'm going to switch over to 2-brush style. I think that'll help expedite this process a little bit more. And by 2-brush style, I mean having a second brush that you can use to feather out the paint while you still keep the other one loaded up. And you just kind of move back and forth, and typically hold it in my mouth while I'm doing that. The second brush, that is. All right, I see some messiness in here that I need to kind of tidy up a little. Right over on this other side. I'm kind of starting on the lower portion of the miniature and kind of work my way up as I go. And then just take that, just kind of pull that back down a little bit. Feather it out a scotch. Thing over here underneath these arms, we want a nice good deep shadow underneath here along this back, but we want it to kind of taper and feather out to something a little bit lighter as it goes higher. Take some of this paint and push it back down in here a little. Right, feather that guy up a little bit more. I think I kind of like a decent fade from the light to the dark here, so I'm going to concentrate some of this down towards the middle center of this chest area. I proceed. And this center area in here I'm going to paint green, so I'm not too worried about that spot. This is probably going to take a couple passes to get it to the smooth transition that I really want. It's looking a little choppy now, but I'm just going to kind of keep moving around and hitting different areas just to try to keep the paint drying in some spots. So some more of this kind of darker color underneath the leg here. This. Down in here as well. Well, we are very happy to be doing these painting videos. I know it's kind of a highlight for my week. I get to sit back and paint some new miniatures that are coming out and just talk about it with people that enjoy this sort of thing. We have a good time with it. I know that Dallas and Will really enjoy it too. They're stream veterans at this point. They've been doing it a long time, and it is all exciting and new for me. So it's definitely an enjoyable thing that I'm looking forward to each week. And I think we'll start to, look at some other Star Wars stuff too. I've been thinking about some X-Wing repaint stuff. Been thinking about some maybe modeling some asteroids or something like that for X-Wing. Some more terrain articles. We have a bunch of different ideas in the queue. Lots of different potential things. So kind of as I mentioned last time, if you guys have some ideas, some things that you'd really like to see, make sure to let us know. All right. I'm going to go back in with a little bit of that base color, a little bit of that birch, and I'm just going to add another highlight up here to kind of smooth out this transition a little bit. Start to get a little bit more of a fade going down. We'll add some more highlights up here on the higher levels too. This head area, I'm just going to go ahead and thin down a little bit of this this mixture here. I'm just going to go ahead and paint it over most of it because it has enough ridges here that'll probably retain a lot of that. And do a little bit of the work for me. So unlike these like really large flat areas where you don't really have a lot of tooth for any sort of shade or wash to reside in, you've got to kind of feather out the edges a little bit more. But with these kind of more textured spots, the texture can do a little bit of the work for you. Right, I'm here to do this arm in a similar fashion. The hands and the kind of undersuit area of the miniature is going to be probably mostly black, I think, just because I like the contrast. But I'm also going to have to figure out where I'm going to work that green in, because definitely am thinking about painting some green today. Do that. And while that paint's even wet, I can go in with a little bit of that lighter color, and I can just kind of smooth some things out if I want to. And I'm just kind of moving around the miniature while it dries and just hitting different areas, highlighting stuff up as I go. A little bit more of this birch. Looks like my base coat is almost dry on the base, so I think I'll probably transition while some of this stuff is drying to doing a little bit of dry brushing on that base. I like to get that base done early because I think it's such a defining characteristic of a miniature. Like you see so much of it, especially like from up at, like like looking over a tabletop, that it's I like to factor it into my overall color scheme and just see like how it looks. Some in the past I've painted some stuff and gotten all the way to the end and then applied my basing scheme and I'm like, I just don't get the contrast. It doesn't really pop off the base enough, I'd really like it to. Just a little bit more highlighting up here. I don't want it to like fade into the middle and be a little bit darker. Move that up. And this is not perfect. We're always just trying to show you just general approaches, also mostly just to hang out and talk about all of our cool stuff that we have coming out. See how everybody's doing. We can always go back and revisit these things and add as much time and additional layers and detail that we want to, but for now we're mostly focusing on tabletop style. Just getting them on the table so we can get some games in. I'm certainly looking forward to. Check the chat here, see if anybody's got anything for me. Ah, you guys are all talking amongst yourselves. Cool, I'm gonna keep painting that. Location, a little bit of shadow down here. Get those feet. So looking at the reference, you know, there are a lot of like really cool like squad markings we could put on here. I think that's, you know, that's one thing that I really like about a lot of the Clone Wars stuff is that they have a lot of kind of unique detachments. You know, you've got all these cool clones with different color schemes and different droids that are sent to different areas of the galaxy, and they all have their own kind of unique take. Sometimes they're kind of based on kind of a camouflage, and sometimes it's more based on you know, just some sort of affiliation with a trade syndicate, etc. There's a lot of room for creativity when it comes to these guys. Okay, I am gonna switch over. I'm gonna do a little bit of dry brushing on this base. Just find the right brush here. So for the first coat, I'm going to go with orange leather for the basing scheme. Nice kind of burnt orange color. Yeah, those prison droids were super cool. I like those too. Taking almost all of the paint off of this. I got a real nasty brush here that I use for dry brushing. I'm just going to lightly skim over top of all of this grit and gravel that I added previously before I primed it. If you missed last week's stream, this is essentially just modeling sand or just any sand that you can get your hands on, and some pieces of slate that are just pushed into a little bit of putty on the base and smoothed out. I like to get all this basing stuff done early because it is very messy, and you know, I'll go outside the lines a little bit, kind of like I did on that leg there. I just want to be able to kind of tidy it up as I go. Next layer is going to be Mars Orange from Scale Color. This color right now. Just move this guy around. Trying to dodge the feet as much as I can, but mistakes will happen. Cool. Okay, the next step I want to do now is I'm all kind of like just working up this miniature in broad strokes, so to speak. So I want to kind of just start mapping out some colors and see how they're all going to interact, since this is kind of the first of this type. For the base coat for the green, I'm going to use, let's see what color would be good for that. Black Forest Green. Let's try that one. Nice and dark. Get this mixed up real well so it'll cover better. All right, and I like the idea of doing this kind of central area in here, in that green. I'm going to go ahead and apply a base coat to there. Just thin down a little bit. Do my best to try to keep it neat, but if I go outside the area, I can certainly make some adjustments. Thin that down just a little bit. Got kind of a green central area there. And I want to kind of carry that down. I often like to think about, color composition when it comes to accent colors. And I often find that, kind of like a triangular kind of orientation usually looks pretty good. Like things in odd numbers, like in, threes and fives, etc. I think look a little better. So because of that, I'll probably think about applying a little bit of this green down on like the legs or the arms. Maybe I'll do like some little stripes. But before I get into that level of detail, I want to kind of bring up some of the base of the armor panels and some of these other areas. There's a bit of green in there. And that I'm going to go ahead while that's wet and take a little bit of a lighter green. This one is Golden Olive from Vallejo. While that paint is still wet, I'm just going to go ahead and apply a little bit of that in there. Make that pop just a little bit more. Smooth it out. Probably going to take a couple coats to get a decent coverage. Yeah, the reflection on there makes it so you can't see it very well, but as it dries, you'll start to see it a little bit better. Okay, there's a lot of areas on this miniature that are black. So I'm just going to take some regular black and I'm going to thin it down with that mixture that I mentioned before. And I'm going to go ahead and paint in this area here. It looks like this whole kind of central belly section of the droid is black. And that down just a little bit more. But it looks like this little under codpiece section here is going to be the same kind of bone color, so we'll want to keep that separate. Go ahead and hit up on those little spots. Turn here and get the back part. Cool. While we're at it, we might as well hit up this this blaster here. Turn it down slightly just so I can get a little bit of the lights and darks of the texture there. Okay, so we've got about 30 minutes left. I don't know if I'm going to get to this little probe droid right now. So maybe I'll just focus on this guy for a while, and then we'll come back to the others next week. And all these kind of connecting points, like the joints and different areas here, these are typically done in black as well. So I'll go through and kind of pick those little guys out. Hip joint down here too would be good. Over here. Yeah, I like these kind of three colors together, kind of a black, something really light, and then like a middle tone. I think that's just, in general, a cool combo. Like the contrast of like the light color, like a white or a tan next to the black, and then the accent color just kind of makes things kind of come together a little bit better too. Looks like the, I'm going to do the hands in this black too. Why not? Maybe except for that armor plate, just to make it the armor plate on the back of the hand, because I don't want it to blend in too much with the weapon over here. So I'll do the fingers in black, but I'll leave the back part of the hand in that lighter color. Tap this guy down, try to hit the underside here as best I can. Try to keep it in frame. It does have those stormtrooper style hands, yeah. And then I think I'm going to carry down a little bit of this black into the feet too. So I'm going to do the area here. And it's mostly just about composition of all the colors, just making sure that we get, you know, a good distribution of our accent colors, our darkened colors across everything as well as we can. I'm sorely tempted to like go crazy with some battle damage and stuff on this guy, but I don't think we'll have time to do that today. Always kind of like that sponged on battle damage look. It looks great on droids and clones and stormtroopers. Anything that has like those kind of large armor panels, you can kind of go through and accentuate. And that's usually achieved by you know, like using a sponge and a little bit of like a darker brown paint, kind of sponging it onto the edges. But it's less is kind of more with that technique. I think that it's really easy to kind of overdo it and make things look just a little confusing. Like you kind of miss out on seeing some of the shapes and forms of it all. All right, we'll get up here and do this section here. Ready. So looking at his face, I'm gonna hit his neck in black. And they usually have these kind of menacing eyes that like stand out underneath everything, so I'll try to get in there and pick those things out too. Maybe we'll do this backpacking green. Sounds like a good color. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of this and a little bit of my medium here, mix it in there so it just gets a little bit thinner, flows a little better. And then this. The sun is out today. It has me definitely thinking about warmer temperatures and our eventual return to the game stores. I think I'm going to try to get a little bit of a Legion campaign going on with some friends where we're going to play a bunch of Link games together. We've got kind of like a system for doing that, and we've been talking about that quite a bit while we've been quarantined. We've been busily painting our forces and are very excited to get back together and play some games again. Okie doke. I think that we need to add just a little bit more contrast into some of these like deeper areas. So I'm going to take a bit of a brown wash. I'm going to go through here and I'm going to kind of line in some of these spots to make those things pop just a little bit more. Got to hit up that knee with a little bit of black, but for now I'll do that later. Got a little bit of that shade in here. Get a little bit more definition, and then we'll go back through here and tidy up the edges and make those pop a little bit more, some edge highlights. So I'm just mostly applying this just right around where the armor plates kind of come together. Just as like a little line of division to make the forms pop out just a little bit more. Wrist area here. These little bits connect. Over here too. And some spotty base coat in here. You guys got to keep me honest. No cutting corners on the droid assembly line. And because so much of this area around the face is in shadow here, I think that a darker shade is going to help define some of the recesses pretty well. Yeah, I'm mostly using scale 75 and some Vallejo paints here, by and large. I like the consistency of them. I like the color range. The coverage is really good, and they come in dropper bottles, which is my preferred method because I like to airbrush, and it's just so much easier to use a dropper bottle than it is a regular old paint pot. Okay. This arm is going to need a little bit more of that. Go ahead and line in just a little bit here just to add a little bit more contrast to this little area that goes around the head. And how the time flies. 15 minutes. What are we gonna do? I think we need to start kind of defining some of these areas with some edge highlights. This model is, or miniature, is perfect for that because it has a bunch of like really sharp edges on it. And for the edge highlights, I like to just kind of go a little bit past it and use the side of the brush and just kind of drag those down to kind of hit those up. Do the same up here. This is looking a little wet, but hopefully I can get that highlight in there. I'll turn this guy over here. Oops, can't see him. Okay. Back in here with a little bit of that shadow color, that kind of mid-tone value. And let's make sure that we get, you know, some of these other areas where I missed before, like underneath that arm, some of these other spots. That dialed in. Looking quite so spotty. shadow underneath that arm. Yeah, it's looking better. And then underneath this arm too. It's a little heavy there. Use this other brush to kind of pull that out a little bit. I'll probably have to touch that up with a little bit of black. Feather it out a bit. It's kind of like a stippling motion. It's kind of like repeated, at least that's how I feather out the edges. I think some people do it different ways, but I like to kind of use repeated motions and kind of move around and feather things out as I go. More contrast in here. We want this to be a little bit darker. I don't normally use this kind of two brush style, but I'm starting to like it. Fun. All right, let's go back to this. A little bit more shadow down here. All right, starting to come together a little bit better. I do need to hit up these knees. Just black, just make those pop a little bit more. And generally speaking, if I had a bit more time, I'd probably be waiting for some of these layers to dry a little bit, but you know, we're trying to get a lot done in an hour, so. Down that black. Rivets around the elbows. Get up here and do that part too. So I think that what's going to help tie a lot of this together is a pretty strong edge highlight. I'm gonna spend most of my time doing that right now. I would normally kind of go back and forth and feather out a lot of these transitions and make this a little bit more tidy. We're trying to get them tabletop ready with a quickness. Yeah, this guy really takes an edge highlight pretty well. A lot of sharp edges to work with. And this is got a little bit of white mixed into the base coat color, just to make it pop just a little bit more. Right here. Spot up on this top little ridge up on the top. And again, this is all just kind of with the side of the brush. I don't really go at it with a point. It's just gonna, you let a lot of the edge of the miniature itself do a lot of the work for you. I feel like it needs a better highlight here on top of this a little bit. If I go a little bit too wide, kind of like I did on that arm right up here, you can always go back in and kind of shave down that highlight a little bit in that kind of touch-up step that I was talking about. Or not, you know, if you're cool with it, just roll with it. The edge highlights I feel help a ton in like just defining the actual forms and like really starting to make them come together. So the face is a bit of a focal point. Let's spend a little bit of time on that in these like remaining minutes that I've got here. Got a bit of a beak, so let's light that a little bit. Highlight a little bit up on top of this hip plate. Some light would be caught there. You kind of catch a little bit there, so I get that in. I see a spot here on this arm that I forgot to get a good base coat on. Go through and have one of those and just clear up the old brush. All right, see you later, Simone. So, did you guys get a chance to take a look at the Callus and the Lando articles today? What were your guys' thoughts about them? Starting to factor them into your overall plans, or are you all just a bunch of separatist players in here? So a little bit of light would be caught up here on the top of the head. I'm going to hit that up a little bit more, make that a little bit brighter. I'm going to smooth that guy out a little bit. Then I see a little spot where I made a mistake up here on the shoulder pad. I'll tidy that up a little bit more. Yeah, ISB Investigations looks real good to me too. I'm definitely thinking about trying to factor that into my plans. Really got to get my head around how all the contingencies work, and like there's so much potential there with how those work, you know, like you've just got so many backup plans available to you. It's pretty awesome. They were certainly fun to play test. And now that I've got a painted Callus, no reason why I can't start to get them in some games here pretty soon. All right, my heart says more green. So I mentioned before about you know, trying to get that green in kind of a triangular pattern somewhere. I think what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to go ahead and apply just like a bit of a stripe here on his puffs. We'll make it kind of thick so it does kind of stand out a little. And I'm going to line it up with that little indent right there. That's where the edge of it is going to be, so I can try to get the placement of it right on the other side too. And this fella upside down so I can hit the rest of this. Oh, well that plan didn't work. I thought he'd have that same marking on his other arm, so he doesn't. So I'll just eyeball it. And shade it around this neck a little bit just to define it. That darker green that we have. And I find like when you're trying to get straight lines, it really helps to kind of, you know, brace your hands together in such a way, choke way up on the brush, and then just find a motion that's like really repeatable and controllable for you. In my case, it's just like moving the last few digits of my fingers in a kind of vertical motion like this. So I have turned the miniature on its side in order to align it with that direction of motion, and that's helping me out get it done. Cool. I think those little green accents are pretty sweet. Well, we're almost running out of time. I'll go just a little. Simone left. She'll never know. No, she'll know. Actually working on modding the mall model for a martial arts character. Interesting. I want to pick out these rocks a little bit in a slightly lighter color. I kind of like a little bit of that contrast in there. While that paint's still a little wet, I'll go ahead and just apply little edge highlights in there with a lighter color. And this approach is a little bit more, I guess, traditional in the ways that a lot of miniatures are painted, where you're just doing like base coats and highlights and edge highlights, and it does take a little bit more time. I certainly like the methods that we're often using on these streams to get things done, but I thought I would just go about it a little bit different today. As a result, I feel like I did not get as much done as I normally would, so that's telling. Use the washes, they save you time. These are my signature basing rocks. Yep. I get royalties on those. Nah, it's just slate. Just pieces of slate. I bought a big giant batch of it that I've been slowly chipping away at for years now at this point. Okay. All right, I'm going to go about another minute or two. And then we'll call it good for today. I'll probably put a little bit more work in on this guy in my free time, so when I come back next week, you guys can see the finished product. And next week, I don't know, which droid would you like to see? Just as a review, these are your options. We've got a medical droid, probably the most complex of the lot. We've got the PK Worker Series droid, holding the head of a B1, which is a big favorite of mine. I like that guy quite a bit. Then we got this Pro Droid, who has got this big giant lens, which is always a fun thing to paint. Got to vote for Pro Droid. We've got to vote for a PK. Another PK. Oh man, it's heated. I'll have to come back and double check them. We'll have to do a tally. Your votes matter. Nah. Okay. Well, that is a good start on this fellow. Oh, I see a mistake that I just have to fix. Just any of these like little areas up here towards the top around the face. It's such a focal point. I just gotta tidy them up a little bit, or it will irk me. Well, cool. Well, that was fun. Very enjoyable. Got a good start on this one. Definitely going to spend some more time tidying up some areas. I think, next steps for this would be making sure that I go in and like you can see some of these areas underneath. Just hitting those with the darker shade to kind of like make those a little bit darker. Definitely some lining in. I want to go back in and smooth out a lot of the transitions from the lights to the darks. Just get rid of some of that spottiness, that as the shades dried. But like from 3 feet away, this guy looks great. All right. Well, that will wrap up today. Thank you so much for joining me. As a reminder, we are streaming live every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday with myself, Will Schick, and Dallas Kemp. We're going to keep you guys full of new streaming content, lots of new stuff coming up on the horizon. So stay safe, everybody. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. All right, take care.